Have you noticed how certain men always seem to circle back, as if something unseen keeps pulling them toward you, even after an intimate moment that felt like the end? What if I told you there exists a quiet, almost invisible force, an attitude so subtle, yet so powerful, that it lingers inside his mind long after the body has parted? And what if this has nothing to do with how tenderly you speak or what you do between the sheets, but with something infinitely deeper, something sacred? Carl Jung, one of the great explorers of the human soul, would say that the mystery lies not in what happens during intimacy, but in how you meet your own essence after it. Because when the lights fade and the noise dissolves, what remains is energy, raw, unspoken, and honest. That energy, if you know how to hold it, becomes unforgettable. You see, Jung believed that the true bond between two people begins where logic ends, in the invisible meeting of their unconscious worlds. Every glance, every pause, every silence after passion carries symbols the mind can't fully grasp. In those quiet spaces, souls speak their native tongue. And it's there, not in the act itself, where real attraction takes root. When you share intimacy with a man, you're not only sharing a physical space, you're opening the door to your hidden self. The part that trembles, the part that remembers, the part that still believes. That's why what you do afterward matters more than anything. Because after the closeness, your energy either expands in peace or collapses in fear. If you let anxiety take over, if you wait by the phone, question your worth, or grasp for proof that he still feels something, that vibration of lack reaches him. He might not be able to explain it, but he'll sense it. His unconscious recognizes the frequency of need, and instinctively, it pulls away. But when you turn inward instead, when you breathe through the silence, embrace your own emotions without judgment, and return to yourself with quiet dignity, everything changes. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract him, but because your calm confidence awakens something dormant in him. Jung would say that your energy becomes a mirror in which he glimpses his own forgotten truth. Through you, he feels a connection to the part of himself he can't access alone. That's why he comes back. Not for your body, not even for the comfort of your touch. He returns because, in your presence, he remembers himself. He feels a peace he didn't know he was craving, the kind that only exists beside someone who is whole within her own silence. This is what Jung called individuation, the sacred journey of becoming who you truly are. It's not a path of chasing or proving. It's a path of returning. When you learn to hold yourself gently after intimacy, not as a punishment to him, not as manipulation, but as reverence for your own essence, you're telling the universe a powerful truth. I am already complete. And that statement, even unspoken, vibrates through his unconscious. Most people don't know how to be whole in solitude. When a man meets someone who carries calm instead of need, softness instead of fear, he's drawn in like a tide to the moon. Your stillness becomes gravity. Your absence becomes presence. It's strange, isn't it, how silence can speak louder than words? But that's exactly what happens here. When your energy is steady, your silence whispers what desperation never could. I do not need you to exist. I choose to exist fully, and in that fullness, you may meet me if you dare. That energy is irresistible, not because it flatters his ego, but because it calls his soul to awaken. Jung often spoke about the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine forces within every human being. A man, he said, spends much of his life searching for his lost inner feminine, the part of him that feels, that intuits, that loves without fear. When he meets a woman who is in touch with her essence, calm, rooted, emotionally intelligent, he feels drawn, even haunted by her. It's not about desire anymore. It's about recognition. You become the mirror that reflects his missing half. But here lies the paradox. If you chase him, he loses that reflection. The mirror cracks. The connection breaks. Because the energy shifts from sacred to needy, from soul to ego. What he once experienced as wholeness turns into pressure. That's why your stillness after intimacy is not emptiness. It's presence. It's the rarest kind of power, the power of non-grasping. Imagine this. After a night that felt sacred, he leaves. No message, no call. You feel the ache of the unknown. But instead of falling into panic, you breathe. You make tea. You light a candle. You sit with your heart, not to silence it, but to honor it. You whisper to yourself, I am here. I am enough. And in that quiet ritual, you reclaim everything the world taught you to give away. That is the moment when his soul feels the shift, the invisible thread tightening, not out of need, but out of recognition. Because what you've touched inside him isn't lust, it's memory, the memory of truth, of peace, of home. And that, more than anything you could ever say, is why some men never forget you. When a man leaves after closeness and meets on the other side a woman who doesn't chase, doesn't demand explanations, doesn't fold under fear, yet also doesn't close her heart, something rare begins to happen inside him. He feels a silence, but it's not the cold silence of rejection. It's a silence charged with presence, dignity, and an almost sacred stillness. In that silence, he begins to meet himself. Carl Jung called this moment the meeting with the shadow, the part of ourselves we've spent a lifetime denying. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply the place where everything repressed goes to hide. Our fears, our regrets, our tenderness, our capacity for love. When he begins to feel that ache of nostalgia, that quiet longing he can't explain, it's because your absence has become a mirror. He is forced to see what he's been running from, the depth of his own soul. Your absence, when it's full of presence, confronts him with something he can't ignore. It asks no questions, makes no accusations. It simply exists, whole, luminous, unyielding. And in that reflection, he starts to wonder, what was it about her that felt so different? He can't quite name it, because what you stirred in him was not attraction. It was awakening. And awakenings are never forgotten. He doesn't come back because you begged him to, or because you proved your worth. He returns because something sacred inside him was touched, something ancient and essential. You reminded him, without even trying, of what truth feels like. Jung used to say that every deep connection between two people is a chance for healing. But healing doesn't happen through control. It happens through courage. When you face your solitude, when you sit with your fear of being forgotten and choose compassion instead of panic, you transcend ordinary love. You enter a space of maturity that few people ever reach. In that space, you don't chase love. You become love. You stop trying to hold anyone because you understand that what's real doesn't need to be held. It recognizes itself and returns when the time is right. That kind of quiet confidence is magnetic in a way no manipulation could ever be. It's not the pull of desire, it's the gravity of authenticity. A man might not understand this consciously, but he feels it in every cell of his being. When he meets a woman who doesn't crumble in his absence, who continues to move through life with softness and strength, something stirs inside him. It's as if, for the first time, he senses that love doesn't have to come from drama, from chasing, from emotional hunger. It can come from peace. That realization unsettles him, because most men have never known that kind of peace. They were taught from boyhood to perform strength while burying vulnerability, to chase conquest instead of connection, to fear emotions as weakness rather than seeing them as the bridge to their own soul. And so, when they encounter a woman whose energy is calm yet powerful, whose silence is full yet never punishing, they are disarmed. You become, to him, what Jung would call a psychological sanctuary, a place where he unconsciously feels safe enough to drop his armor. Not because you made him, but because your energy doesn't demand anything. It simply invites. It says, I see you, but I do not need to possess you. That's the paradox of true feminine power. The less you reach, the more you draw in. So after intimacy, when everything in you wants to grasp for control, pause. That trembling inside you, the one that whispers, what if he leaves? What if I lose him, is not weakness. It's an invitation. It's your shadow asking to be seen with compassion. Don't silence it, but don't obey it either. Just breathe into it. Let it soften. Let it teach you presence. Because in those moments, you're not just waiting for him. You're becoming someone new. You're expanding your capacity to love without losing yourself. And that transformation, that quiet evolution, is what makes you radiant. A man might forget words, bodies, even faces, but he never forgets the woman who made him feel safe enough to face himself. Remember, this has nothing to do with manipulation or performance. Jung was clear. True transformation only happens through authenticity. If your calm is fake, he will sense it. If your silence is punishment, he will retreat. But if your peace is real, if you're genuinely returning to your own essence, he will feel that truth in his bones. Because truth, unlike seduction, doesn't fade. So instead of waiting by the phone, wait within yourself. Instead of asking, will he come back? Ask, what part of me is longing for reassurance? Touch that place gently. Give yourself what you've always wanted from another. That's the act that rewires everything. Because when you treat yourself with devotion, your energy becomes untouchable. It no longer whispers fear. It sings freedom. And freedom is the most irresistible scent in the world. Men are drawn to it not because it flatters them, but because it liberates them. Your independence awakens in them a forgotten hunger, not for possession, but for truth. Deep down, every man yearns for a woman who doesn't shrink or beg, but who stands as a mirror of what is real. Someone who says, with her energy, you are welcome here, but you are not my source. When he meets that, he will never forget you. Most men, even the ones who appear confident and unshakable, are secretly terrified of what they feel. From a young age, they have been taught to suppress their emotions, to hide their tenderness behind control, their fear behind pride. They've learned to run from their inner storms rather than listen to what those storms are trying to reveal. Jung warned that whatever we reject in ourselves doesn't vanish. It hides in the shadows of the unconscious, waiting to surface in unexpected ways. So when a man meets a woman who doesn't chase, who doesn't panic, who doesn't try to fix what's broken, but instead radiates calm acceptance, he is forced to face those hidden parts of himself. Her silence becomes a mirror. Her steadiness becomes the confrontation he didn't know he needed. And that's why many men return. Not because of the body, not because of nostalgia, but because her presence held up a reflection of his soul. For a fleeting moment, he touched something real, and truth always calls us back. Understand this: when you remain still after intimacy, When you don't rush to fill the silence with words or reassurance, you give both of you a sacred gift: space. In that space, something begins to unfold. His emotions start to move, his defenses soften, and the echo of what was shared starts to deepen. Jung believed that true growth happens only through stillness and confrontation with one's inner self. The pause, the quiet waiting, is not a void. It's transformation in motion. He may leave, he may distance himself, but something inside him lingers in that field of energy you created. He may try to distract himself with noise, other faces, endless routines. But the unconscious doesn't forget. The memory of what was authentic remains imprinted in his psyche, like a permanent mark, because the soul always recognizes where truth once existed. And here's the paradox that Jung understood so well: that return only happens when you don't interfere, when you don't chase, don't plead, don't explain. The soul must travel through its own shadow to find its way back to light. If you interrupt the process, if you try to hurry his realization, you steal from him the chance to grow. He needs to feel the ache of absence to touch the silence you left behind. He needs to meet his own longing without the comfort of your voice, soothing him back into sleep. Because pain is the teacher that awakens consciousness. When you respect his silence without abandoning yourself, you allow him to evolve. And in doing so, you evolve too. Your role is not to convince him. It's to stay rooted in your essence, to guard your energy like sacred fire. Because in this waiting, something alchemical is happening within you. You're not the same woman you were before intimacy. You're becoming someone deeper, wiser, more whole. The waiting isn't punishment, it's refinement. You're learning to stand in your fullness, untouched by uncertainty, radiating the quiet confidence of someone who belongs completely to herself. And that is what makes you unforgettable. It's not beauty, not words, not perfection. It's presence. The kind of presence that whispers, "I am not here to be chosen. I am here to remember who I am." Our culture fears waiting. It tells you to move on quickly, to replace, to distract, to forget. But Jung would call that avoidance, a refusal to face the fertile silence that births awareness. True transformation, he said, requires sacred time, the willingness to sit with what hurts until it reveals its deeper message. So after intimacy, don't rush to fill the space. Don't drown the quiet with noise. Let the void breathe. Let your body rest. Tend to your soul, because that's when the invisible work begins. Read something that feeds your spirit. Step into the sun and feel the warmth on your skin. Let the world remind you that life continues, not as an escape from pain, but as a reminder that you are bigger than the ache. Each moment of presence brings you closer to your center. And while you nurture yourself, something equally mysterious is unfolding within him, even if you see nothing on the surface. His soul is processing what it touched with you. He may resist it, he may rationalize it, but energy doesn't lie. When someone experiences real connection, it leaves an echo that no distraction can erase. That's why, often weeks or months later, they return, softer, quieter, unsure how to explain what pulled them back. It's not manipulation that brought them. It's truth. Because what is real always finds its way home. But remember, not every man will return. And that's okay. Because this story, ultimately, was never about him. It's about you. About who you become in the waiting. About how you learn to hold yourself with the kind of love you once begged for. Jung said that every relationship is a mirror, showing us what still needs healing. When that mirror cracks, we can either stare at the break in despair, or look at the reflection that still remains. What did this experience reveal about you? Which wounds did it bring to light? What part of your soul is asking to be reclaimed? Every tear, every silence, every unanswered message becomes sacred material, fuel for self-understanding. And that kind of awareness is never wasted. Even if he never comes back, you have gained something far more precious: yourself. There comes a moment when you stop asking if he'll return and start realizing that the real return was always your own, back to yourself. That's when everything changes. Jung believed that true love can only exist between two whole beings, not two halves, searching for completion. And that's why this moment, this sacred solitude after intimacy, is not the end. It's the initiation. Because if you can sit in your stillness without rushing to fill the space with noise, you begin to see what few ever do: that love was never meant to be a chase. It was meant to be a mirror. Every person who enters your life is a reflection of your inner world, a messenger sent to show you where your heart still trembles, where your faith still wavers, where your light still hides. So when he leaves, when the silence stretches out like a vast horizon, instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" ask, "What truth is this silence trying to teach me?" Maybe it's teaching you how to trust your own rhythm. Maybe it's showing you how to hold your longing without collapsing under it. Maybe it's preparing you for a kind of love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Jung called this the alchemy of transformation, the process of turning pain into gold. And you, right now, are the alchemist. Your patience, your silence, your compassion toward yourself are the fire that refines your soul. When you choose not to chase, not to explain, not to prove, you reclaim the most powerful statement a woman can make: I belong to myself. That energy doesn't repel love. It attracts it in its highest form. Because when a woman stands in her essence, she doesn't beg to be seen. She becomes impossible to overlook. And yes, he might return, not because you called him, but because your energy calls him. Because somewhere deep inside, his soul remembers the peace he felt beside you. A peace he couldn't name, but one that lingered in his bones. And yet, even if he never does, you will have already won, because you will have broken the oldest pattern there is, the belief that love is something to be earned. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Every moment of waiting, every ache of uncertainty, is shaping you into that person, the woman who no longer pleads to be loved, but who simply radiates love, not as performance, but as presence. This is what mature love looks like: not drama, not constant reassurance, but quiet connection. A relationship between two souls who have already met themselves, who no longer confuse attachment with intimacy. When such souls meet, there is no chase, no fear, no need to prove anything. There is only recognition. So take this time to nourish yourself in the simplest, most sacred ways. Drink water slowly. Let the morning light touch your face. Write to yourself as you would to a friend who has survived everything and still believes. Read words that make your spirit breathe again. And in all of it, remember, you are not waiting for him. You are waiting for the version of you that no longer waits. Because that woman, when she finally stands in her truth, draws love that feels like peace, not war. And when you meet again, if life allows it, you won't be the same. You won't be the woman who trembled in uncertainty. You'll be the one who learned to dance with it. You'll speak less from fear and more from presence. You'll love, but without losing yourself. You'll hold, but without gripping. You'll see him, truly see him, not as someone who must fill your emptiness, but as another traveler on the same sacred path. That is the highest form of love Jung described, not the fusion of two broken halves, but the union of two whole beings who recognize the divine in each other. And that begins when, after intimacy, you choose to return to yourself. You see, in that quiet gesture lies the most profound secret of attraction. Not manipulation, not seduction, but authenticity. When you respect yourself, when you honor your emotions, when you trust your own pace, you create an energetic field that calls truth back to you. Not everyone can meet you there. Some will walk away, unable to stand the light of your calm. Let them go with grace. They are simply not ready for this frequency. But the ones who are, the ones whose souls are mature enough to feel, will recognize you instantly. They will see in your eyes what words can't explain. A woman who no longer seeks love to fill her, but who is love, embodied. And in that presence, he won't just want to be near you, he'll want to rise to meet you. Because beside you, he won't just feel desire, he'll feel purpose. He'll feel home. So if you do one thing after intimacy, if you want to hold the key to what makes someone truly remember you, let it be this. Return to yourself. Breathe. Rest. Feel. Trust. Let your silence speak. Because the woman who can be whole in solitude carries a power the world cannot explain. That power is magnetic, eternal, unforgettable. It is what makes him come back, not because he lost you, but because in your presence he found himself. And that, Jung would say, is the truest form of love, the meeting of two souls who have both returned home.